just can you tell us what this Cleveland lineup, what challenges you have ahead with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously they won over 90 games for a reason. I think, they've had a great season. You got guys who have been in the league for a long time and had a lot of success with Ramirez and Kwan's obviously all-star caliber player. I think just very they do the small things right, and they're very when you face lineups like this, they have guys obviously who can hit the homers with Naylor and those guys, but they find a way to score runs. So when you face teams like that, it poses a challenge because um, you can't really take anyone off. Anyone can get a hit, and top to bottom. Obviously, Rocchio's doing what he's doing in the bottom of the lineup, and so yeah, I think very very scrappy team, but also have the ability to slug and score some runs, and they'll find a way to score any way they can.
Also, when Aaron Boone talks about you, a lot of the times he brings up your confidence. He talks about you being one of the more confident young pitchers he's ever seen. Just where does your confidence come from? How early did you start to develop that?
Yeah. Um, I would say there's a lot of things that go into it. I think my faith is one of them. I think uh, when I have something that I think is kind of bigger than me and something that I can always lean on is almost like a crutch for me, and I kind of trust the plan that's laid out in front of me. It's not really in my control to control a lot of these things. Um, that's the biggest thing is it's kind of out of my hands, and I trust that, and I think. The other thing is, I put a lot of work in. I trust all the work that I put in the off season, the work that I do in season with my body, with my preparation, whether it's prepping for a lineup or game planning, or it's prepping my body to pitch and to go out there and be my best when I'm out there. And it's just I trust myself, and I think uh, a lot of the work that I put in is on the mind as well. I try to be fearless when I'm out there. I know that there's very few things that we can control when we're out there, but the one thing that we can control is our mentality and how we handle ourselves out there. So, especially when you're in these environments in playoffs, like, if you let the noise get to you and you start paying attention to the outside voices, I think, you really can get thrown around a lot. So for me, I just try to stay within myself, trust myself and understand that if I'm out there and I'm as fearless as possible and I'm on the attack and I trust my work that I put in, then I'll be in a good spot.
Thank you, Clark.
Mhm.
Or Ron Blum next, Clark.
Hey, Clark, thanks for doing this. When you pitched and watched against the Royals last week, what did you learn about if there was anything you had to do differently in these postseason games?
I think obviously the environment is the biggest thing, I think. And hitters are a lot more locked in. I think, they're trying to attack. They know your strengths, they know what you're trying to go at. They know the areas you're trying to get to. So it's almost a little bit more of a chess game than it might be in regular season. I think over the course of a regular season, it's more of a longevity game, and there's so many games, and it's a larger sample size. Now, teams are looking at what you just recently did, and they're trying to pick apart what you do best, and it's almost a little bit more of a magnifying glass on your strengths and what you're trying to do. So I think you have to make adjustments more on the fly. You have to read swings a little bit more. I think the chess game, just the game within the game, becomes a little bit larger, and I think just being able to adjust and see and kind of see what the team's giving you. What is their game plan against you, and try to you have a game plan going into it, but obviously you have to be able to adjust it.
Dug out the last two nights. What were you looking at as Carlos and Garrett attacked Cleveland?
Yeah, I think obviously, Carlos was amazing, and even Garrett last night, he started off really strong, and they started to make some really good adjustments, and that's what good teams do. And you just kind of pay attention to the way our guys are attacking them and kind of how they're responding to it and what adjustments they are making. And obviously they made some adjustments with Garrett that paid off for them. So just reading swings, reading foul balls, reading just the small things, trying to pay attention to all the details as much as you can. I think everything that you see that goes on in a game, it might be overlooked to the outside eye, but everything that happens kind of happens for a reason, and it's almost like you just have to pay attention to the game within the game a little bit more. I would say.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Go to Brian Hoke next.
Hey, Clark. Of course, your first two postseason games happened in Cleveland. Your first two postseason games happened in Cleveland. Do you think that's helped you in any way? What did you take away from that?
Yeah, I think obviously having those experiences and kind of understanding what that environment's like, especially in that situation that I was in, back into the game. I think it was probably the rowdiest part of the game. I think, you have a lot of takeaways from there. And, I've learned a lot from that and being able to take bits and pieces from that and try to adjust my game. And, also it kind of prepared it kind of prepared me for the moment and I understand what that kind of environment's like and what to expect in a sense. And so yeah, I would say it definitely is definitely kind of stamped in my mind. It's something I'm looking forward to going back out there and pitching in that environment. I definitely love being out there in those moments. Last week in Kansas City was great. That environment was awesome, and pitching on the road is something that I like to do. I mean, I love pitching at home, but pitching on the road with fans coming at your throat, it's kind of fun to be able to have the ability to silence them whenever you want if you get the job done.
Go to Gary up next, Clark.
Hey, Clark, thanks for taking the time today. Before your last start, I'm pretty sure you said, you weren't nervous, you were just excited. I'm curious if once you got out on the mound, first postseason start, did you feel any nerves at all, or was it just business as usual for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm not like superhuman. I don't have it's not like I don't feel nerves at all. I would think it's a hard feeling to describe. I would say it's not nervousness of what the outcome might be or what the environment's going to be like. It's almost just like kind of like butterflies, anticipation, excitement to get out there. All of those kind of emotions combined. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of nervousness, but I think just kind of being in control of your emotions, breathing, all those things, like slowing the game down as much as possible and almost trying to bring it back to business as usual is something that can kind of snap me out of, if I kind of feel off a little bit emotionally. But it was a really fun environment. And I would definitely say there was definitely a little bit of you can put nervousness on it when you're in the dugout and your team is hitting first and then you're up going out there. That little moment, that brief moment in there, there's some excitement for sure.
Not that those emotions are necessarily a bad thing, but
Right.
having been through it now, particularly in a road environment, a rowdy environment, is
Mhm.
there anything you can do now to maybe squash the butterflies a little bit this time?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing in a sense. I think, if you use it, if you use that emotion and kind of channel it into almost like it takes you to another level if you can use it in the right way. Like if you focus more, if you um maybe your execution can go to another level, the sharpness on your pitches goes to another level. So I think I try to channel all the emotions that I feel and make it into a positive manner. So for me, I'm kind of hoping, I know that I will have those same exact emotions. I would say the biggest benefit I got out of, starting last week on the road, is you kind of know what to expect when you're starting on the road. You kind of know what the bullpen's like, the preparation, fans chirping you, which is, all this stuff is like it's all part of the game, and it's fun, and it's why we love sports. And as a professional athlete, I think that's you dream of situations like that, of the pressure of being on the road, of you know you have to get the job done, and a lot of expectations, and so all these things I welcome, and I think it can take me to a higher place for sure if you use it in the right way.
Gotcha. Thanks, Clark.
Take a last one for Clark from Max.
Hey, Clark, thanks for stopping by real quick. After the win last night, you guys are 2 wins away from the World Series. I'm just curious, last night, maybe today, around the guys in the clubhouse, are you guys starting to taste it a little bit? Is that hard to not look ahead when you still have 2 more to get?
I think, I think just, how sports are, and, 2 games might not seem like a lot, it might seem like right there on the tip of your finger, but it's just these games can change so quick, and the momentum can change so quick. So I think it's, I feel like we show up and almost feels like we're down in the sense in the locker room. It's like, we still got a job to do. We know that we're going on the road in a tough environment. So it's business as usual, I would think, in this locker room. And we know that these next 2 games are pivotal games, and we're trying to get the job done as quick as possibly can.
Aaron, thanks for taking the time. You talk about Clarke. Typically, the first thing you mention is his confidence. Just when did you start noticing that? And was there a moment where you said, like, this guy's got a little bit to him?
Yeah, the bubble in 2020 when we were getting ready and kind of spring training 2.0 up here, and the live BPs and stuff, there was just, and he was very much not a finished product at that point. But flashed all his stuff, and weapons. You're like, man, this guy, he just didn't have real command yet, but had a presence to him and a swagger to him, and he's never not had that. He's and the cool thing is just how much better and better he's gotten each year too. He loves pitching. He loves all that goes into it, the physical preparation for it, the way you train. Um, you know, he'll get in the lab and figure different things out. The cutter's been a pitch that's become a real factor for him over the last couple years. But he's just, he's gotten better and better each and every year, and that's been really cool to witness. But starts with a foundation of confidence because he's really talented.
And also, just we've seen what Giancarlo can do on the field. Just in the clubhouse, how do you perceive that the players receive him, and what does he contribute?
Yeah, reverence for him. He's not doesn't say a ton necessarily, or he's not a, big time talker, but when he speaks, we all listen up. Like he's very thoughtful in the things he says. Um, and there's been some real profound things that he said over the years, in critical moments that get your attention. And certainly, everyone, when he speaks, people listen to him.
Thank you.
Go to Greg next.
Aaron, how's Rizzo feeling this morning after playing back to back?
Good. He was in here when I walked in. He was already in the training room, getting full treatment already this morning. I asked how he was doing. He said, pretty good, better than the day before. Like yesterday, he woke up, he was pretty sore. I think today less so, according to him. So he'll continue to get treatment and, hopefully continue to improve day by day.
You were saying last night he expected to be at the stadium a couple more hours getting treatment. Is he just kind of like round the clock, basically in the trainer's room?
Yeah, I asked him if he slept here in the hyperbaric chamber. And yeah, he's been here a lot. He did go home last night though. But yeah, he's just been, that's really been his last couple of weeks, just really trying to get as much treatment as he can and trying to move the needle just as much as he can to obviously be available.
Go to Brian up next.
Aaron, with Clay, when there was a lot of noise about the blown saves and everything, you were very much in his corner. You kept saying you think he's really close. What were you seeing at that time?
Yeah, I never felt like he was far off. Even in some of the past couple years, when obviously he's had outstanding years for us, he's had moments in the season where it wasn't real sharp, or he'd lose it for a week or two, and really he never really went through that this year. It was just he had some tough luck. Um, in the first half, or in the first few months, some tough, saves where it got away, where you really look at it and you go back and watch the outing, it was pretty good. It was finding some holes. Then there was a stretch where, he got hit hard a couple times, and lost some saves, but he never really was erratic with his command, or and the stuff was all there. So and knowing the kind of person he is, and knowing how tough he is mentally, like, I knew he'd be able to get through it. Um, so I always felt like, even though I changed the role a little bit, knew he had everything to handle it, especially being a really good pitcher. So, um, it's been good to see him really finish the season as strong as he did, and obviously pitching as well as he is for us right now.
When you were taking him out of the ninth inning, did you have to sit him down and have a conversation? How did you explain that to him?
Yeah, we talked a couple times. You know, Initially it was, I might pick some spots where, it's still going to be you, but it might be somebody else, or in a certain spot in the game. If I like the spot in the order for you, I might do that. To where it kind of graduated to more than that, where I was going to take him out of the role for at least temporarily. Um, so, I don't think he was thrilled about it. But always a pro, and you wouldn't know it by how he was pitching and how he went about his job, and how he went about things. And it's been really cool to see him, kind of having the success he's having.
Thank you.
Go to Ron up next.
Hey, Aaron, thanks for doing this. Has Nestor thrown his bullpen today, or is he later today?
He's throwing live in about 10 minutes.
Okay, and then if he comes through that, okay, what's the next step?
He'll probably have another live this weekend. So he could potentially have 2 or 3 lives. If we were get through this series, it would potentially set him up to have a good body of work under him to potentially be an option if we're able to get to those series.
Is he sort of in the same position as Anthony was at the beginning of the division series, or is he more of a long shot for the World Series roster?
No, I'd say no. I'd say he's more in play to me at this point. Now he's got steps to go, and he's got to continue to, you know, feel good and bounce back and things like that. But the way it's gone to this point has been encouraging. So I think he's at least a realistic option. Not saying for sure, but the timeline lines up to where if things go well, he could definitely be an option.
Thank you.
Go to Nathan up next.
Hey, Aaron, thanks for taking the time today. Happy anniversary, of course, October 16th, an important date to Yankees fans. Wanted to ask you about Jose Trevino, with the 3 games in a row coming up, do you foresee him getting a start here? And also just, even though he hasn't played so far in the postseason, how would you kind of characterize what his contributions have been behind the scenes?
Yeah, there's definitely a possibility he could get in there. And Trevi is, since the day he walked into our building in Tampa, right before the start of the 2022 season, he's been super impactful in our room with our pitching staff, with all the catchers, and with his teammates. He's been such a model teammate, an impactful teammate, a productive player. And that hasn't stopped, even as, some of his playing time has gone away here down the stretch. He is integral to everything we do. And such a presence in our room.
Go to Gary up next.
Hey, Aaron, thanks again for taking the time. You mentioned before Giancarlo saying some profound things over the years. I was just curious if any particular examples came to mind.
Yeah, I think one thing that stands out to me is, and something that I've made a part of, my opening addresses to players in spring training, to kind of constantly reminding them, like, he's so good at dealing with the noise, that especially comes with playing here in New York, playing with the Yankees. And, when we lost to the Red Sox in 2021 in the wild card game, he spoke afterwards and just, talked about all the, pitfalls that you can find yourself, from a noise standpoint, whether it's going down the rabbit hole of social media and talking to guys like, man, you can find out, you want to find out how great you think you are, or how terrible you are, and everything in between. It's all there and can be a distraction, for guys. And he's so good at not making it a distraction, but really talking about in terms of, it's all toxic. Like, none of that noise should matter to where your focus and where your energy lies. And he lives that. And, so just the way he said it in 2021, I'll never forget it, in the visiting clubhouse of the Red Sox, and really stuck with me, and has always since then, like, for me, made it a point to, like, make sure, like, you're focusing on the right things and trying as best you can to not let unnecessary distractions leak into your performance and your ability to do your job at the highest level.
Got it. Thanks.
Do a couple last ones for Aaron. Randy?
Hi, Aaron. Austin Wells is going through this for the first time. Not a lot of hits, not a lot of strikeouts. But when you look at what he's done behind the plate, not a lot of stolen bases, pass balls. The pitchers are still talking about how they like throwing to him, calling good games, and he's going through this for the first time as a young guy. Are you impressed on how he's not hitting? He's hitting a cleanup spot, not getting hits, but yet he understands that catching is his first job, and this is postseason, and you guys are winning a lot because of pitching.
No doubt. That's what's been really, really cool to see, his continued growth behind the plate and his presence behind the plate. He's done an outstanding job. All the while going through a little bit of struggles offensively. It was really good to see him have that at bat that he had last night. His last at bat where he smoked the ball to right field, I felt like got a lot of good swings off of Gaddis there. So yeah, it has been impressive to see the kind of development we've seen from him defensively and the kind of impact he's having behind the plate. Because you're right. I mean, that's job number one. Especially this time of year, you got to be impactful behind the plate and with your pitching staff. And he does a really good job. He kind of has a veteran presence to him. Like, he handles it all really well, and he's also going to have important, impactful at bats moving forward.
Have you seen cases where rookies have struggled hitting and let it affect the rest of their game? Do you think that mental toughness of him being a catcher and has helped him, and he's different?
Yeah, I mean, his presence has always stood out to me from the first time. I got to be around him a lot in his first big league camp a couple springs ago. That always impressed me. And then what impressed me also was the defensive growth that we saw from him, even starting a couple years ago. Like, okay. And then when he got called up last September, and I felt like really held his own behind the plate, I think has improved over the winter and into this season. And as his role has grown, he's continued to grow in it. But he's not at all like a rookie.
Thank you.
Do a last quick one from Max.
Aaron, you've talked a lot this year about how your group has been through adversity and has been very resilient. What do you like about your team being up 2-0 and, you know, continuing to plug away and maybe not let the advantage get to their heads and still win these next couple games?
Yeah, it's you know, been one of the traits of this team all year. They're really good at, you know, the excitement of a day or the downturn of a week or 2 weeks of a season. They do a really good job of just kind of keep moving forward, you know. And we talk about it a lot, like, you know, the next play is too important to get bogged down by, you know, a result that just happened, good or bad. And they're excellent at that. You know, and they've modeled that really all season long, and it's continued here in the postseason.
Hey, Mike, just with Clay, hey, Mike, with Clay Holmes just turning his season around, what do you think's allowed him to bounce back after he had some rough times there?
I think the fact that he's never really wavered in his confidence for his stuff, even with the role change that he had late in the season, but he's been one who's really taken to the old Mariano adage, where if he's going to be a closer or a late inning high relief pitcher for the Yankees, he's going to have a short memory, and that's what he's been able to do since he's been there.
You know, you bring up Mariano. Luke Weaver said you guys sometimes talk about Mariano stories. What do you tell guys about Mo?
I just basically we talk about how he was, you know, mentally, how he handled being the New York Yankee closer, and why was it that what did I think was the reason why he was able to have so much success? And I always tell them, you know, obviously number one, having short memory, number two, being able to have a delivery that he can repeat constantly, and number three, the fact that he had command of his fastball. So I mean, if you look at a lot of the major league closers, they have that one resigning trait, is the fact that they command their fastballs.
All right, we'll go to Randy up next, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, Randy.
With Luke, do you see a mentality that reminds you of Mariano a little bit? Obviously Mariano did it for 20 years, and this is a month or two into this closing, but it seems like he handles things pretty well. And what's your take on his personality and how that can affect being a good closer?
Personally, I think he has everything it's going to take to be a really, really good closer. Now I think he's what's he got, 6 career saves now, but he's got 4 in the postseason, which is, you know, pretty huge. I mean, I just think that the fact that he's mentally prepared, he's got a slow heartbeat, he knows how to slow the games down, and he's kind of mastered that very, very unorthodox delivery that's allowed him to be consistent with his stuff. And he can take a lot of direction, and he can take the little bits out of it, and he can use it to the best of his ability.
One more on Austin Wells. I'm curious what you see from a young catcher how he handles pitchers when you're around him. For a young catcher, is he different than some young guys? And what's your take on him?
He's very, very ready for this moment, and I saw him a couple years ago, and I've watched his growth from there, and I've watched him do some things. I've watched his interaction with the pitchers. I've watched the pitchers kind of gravitate towards him, and I mean, he's got their respect, and he takes constructive criticism really, really well for a young catcher. I mean, a lot of times there's a lot put on your plate for a catcher, especially with all the noise that comes with being a Yankee catcher, especially in the postseason, especially batting fourth. There's a lot that goes into it. I mean, I watched Jorge do it for a long time, and I mean, he has a lot of those traits, and I think that he's got a chance to catch for a long time. He takes a lot of pride in what he brings to the table, and he brings a lot of confidence. So with that, I mean, our pitchers, they have a lot of trust in him.
Thank you.
Go to Gary up next.
Hey, thanks for taking the time today. Just going back to Luke for a second. You know, with us in front of the cameras and recorders. He's very goofy, quirky, says a lot of funny things. I'm just curious, what's he like in the bullpen, particularly the early innings before you guys are really starting to lock in down there?
He's very much like you guys see him. I mean, very, very loose. Has a very, very dry sense of humor that's like super contagious. He's a great teammate. Guys feed off of his energy. We have a pretty close knit bunch of guys down there that makes it really easy to relay information. It makes it really easy for guys to lean on each other. So I think his presence is a big part of that.
You pay attention to the things he says post game and on TV, and if so, do you have a favorite quote that stood out so far?
No, I mean, I was talking to Meredith yesterday and heard her. He says he compares himself to a big jungle cat, and I kind of said, well, maybe not such a jungle cat, maybe closer to a lynx. But he does have a heart of the lion, and the definitely a big reason of why we are where we are right now.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You can
Go to Ron up next, Mike.
Hey, Mike, thanks for doing this. When
Sure.
you look at some of the pitchers like Clay and Luke and Mesa and Hill, is there anything in common that you think works in the approach that you guys take when they arrive and you evaluate them and you start making suggestions and alterations to their pitches and selection?
I think a lot of credit goes to our front office guys for being able to find these, so-called diamonds in the rough, guys that are, I don't like to say cast-offs from other teams, but where teams have not shown the patience that we were able to do because of the depth that we've had. So we're allowed to do things a little bit differently here. I mean, Desi and Matt do a awesome job of finding grip changes so they can get better seam orientation so that these guys can maximize the stuff they have. And then being able to put them in position. I think Boone does a really, really good job of putting them in positions in spots to have the most success so that we can build their confidence, and then we can start adding more detailed things. And the guys, if they have confidence, they're going to be willing to try anything.
What is the process? How many times do you watch them throw in the pen and have the data before you start making suggestions of things for them to change?
It's usually pretty immediate. I mean, if our front office guys have pinpointed something that they think would be a good fit, we go to work right away on figuring out what we think is going to help them, and then we're able to approach the player as soon as he gets here. And more times than not, but I almost say almost 100% of the time, these guys are open to whatever is going to help them get better. And I think that our pitching department has developed a good enough reputation to know that, if you go over there, you got a really good chance of getting better.
Thank you.
Yep.
Go to Nathan up next.
Hey, Mike, thanks for the time today.
Sure.
It was really late in the regular season when the bullpen was in quite a bit of flux, and, Clay Holmes was being removed from his role, and there was almost sort of an audition process to figure out, who was going to slot in where after that. Going back to, the closeness of that group out there and just their personalities. I mean, what was it that allowed this thing to work the way it has? I feel like that's the type of thing that if you don't have the right personality mix out there, might kind of, cause some tension or some friction.
Oh, I think that's, I hope that my experience of been there and done that, with this Yankee organization for so long is that when you pitch for the Yankees, there's a lot of expectations, and expectations become, they become tough. Either you're trying to live up to them or you're trying to build up to them. I mean, so it becomes one of the difficult hurdles that we have to push through, is that we have to get guys to believe in themselves and believe that, there's going to be ups and downs, and you're going to have to fight through this adversity because you're going to pitch here. There's going to be way more adversity than anywhere else. And I think that's part of the reason why we have guys that once the playoffs start, having had played Boston on Sunday Night Baseball or being in a pennant race year in and year out, that when they get to the playoffs, it's not that far off of the kind of pressure and the demands that are put on them during the regular season. Now, as far as, bullpens are, it's constantly in flux. I mean, because we're trying to make sure that we get guys proper rest. So that means guys have to pitch in different roles. So, I mean, yes, everybody was talking about in July and August what we were going to do if we got to the playoffs with our bullpen, but we stayed the course and we figured out a way to make it work.
We'll go. We got two quick ones left. We'll go to Brian first.
Hey, Hark.
Right.
More. I just realized you're one of the last guys from 2009 still around this team. So would you compare what you're feeling now to what you felt in 09?
I would say very, very similar. I mean, it's really, really weird is that a lot of things have to go right for you to win 11 games to win a World Series. We had a very, very talented group in 2009. We had the best closer in baseball history. We have a lot of very, very talented guys now. The bullpen has been pitching well. It's still got a long way to go. We still have a lot of games that we have to win to accomplish our goal. But winning is super simple. I mean, we just have to continue to do it day in and day out and continue feeding off the energy of every win and moving on to the next round.
Does it feel like it's been 15 years?
Yes.
It does.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely.
Nice, man.
And we'll finish up for Mike with Max.
Mike, I'll keep this one quick. Thank you for taking the time. Clay and Luke get so much attention, but Tommy's been really consistent and reliable all summer long too. I'm just curious what has allowed him to have so much success coming out of that injury that he had earlier this year.
Well, Tommy's been doing it for a long time. I mean, albeit he's been last 4 or 5 years have been dealing with a lot of injuries. Just trying to find Tommy a consistent level of consistency with how we pitch him has probably been the biggest thing. And I think Tommy, he's a big game. He likes to pitch in the big games, and which works out well because the Yankees usually are playing in a lot of big games. But being able to keep him healthy is definitely a challenge. But Tommy, as he's gotten older, has been learned how to listen to his body, and then we've learned how to listen to Tommy even when he's not saying things we don't understand. We have to figure out what's best for Tommy as far as keeping him on the field. But as far as the bullpen's concerned, I mean, you have Tommy. Yes, he's had a great year, but Tim Hill coming here has been awesome. Cousins growing into himself. He's become a big weapon. Ian Hamilton coming here last year, so there's a big combination of guys that have all stepped up when asked to step up and has actually helped us get to this point.
Thank you.
What's up, Tommy? How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem.
If you have a question for Tommy, just drop it in the chat and we'll get going. We'll start with Max.
Hey, Tommy, thank you for taking a couple minutes. Just looking back to this spring with the injuries that you've had the last couple of years, did you think that you'd be able to get back to this point where you're, this consistent and a high leverage option down the stretch?
Yeah. So, I mean, dating back to spring and, last spring, dealing with the multiple shoulder injuries, I mean, there's never a doubt in my mind that I would be able to come back. It was just, dealing with the same injury over and over. It kind of gets tiring. And I think it's just something that I've learned to deal with, especially, being injured quite a lot the last 4 or 5 years. So it's really been, difficult at times, but never a doubt in my mind that, I'd be able to come back and have the same success, I guess.
Is there anything you can pinpoint that's allowed you to have this much success this year? Anything different than you've done in the past?
Um, I think like just mentality wise, when I'm out in the mound, I haven't strayed from the same confidence I've always had. And just using that has always been kind of my philosophy, is just attacking hitters. And sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't go well, but overall that's always been the way I've always pitched, and it seems to have success.
Thank you.
No problem.
Go to Brian up next.
Hey, Tommy, with Clay, what do you think's allowed him to bounce back so strong after getting moved out of the closer role?
Yeah. So Clay, I mean, obviously everybody saw him get moved out. I think that, he never deterred from the demotion, and he just kept working on his craft, kept, you know, getting everything kind of back into rhythm. And I think a big thing was, getting his fastball back and using his fastball more. I know we were trying to get him to use it more. And I feel like over the last, month-ish, he's gone back to his heater, and he's even been throwing four-seam fastballs, which has been amazing. So it's been a great time, watching him develop, and being with him the last couple of years has been great.
And then with Luke taking over there, did you see this coming? Did you know he was capable of that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we saw him this spring and early on in the season. You saw his stuff, and I didn't think for a second in my mind that he couldn't do it. I mean, you saw the passion and everything he had, and obviously I was surprised by it because I never saw him like that. And I mean, he was only with us for a little bit last year, and then coming into this year and seeing him now, he's thrived in it, and I love it. And his passion out there, his emotion is, especially with his stuff, it's been incredible.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We'll go to Nathan up next.
Hey, Tommy, how's it going?
How are you?
Good. Clay obviously had a great all-star first half, and the way things shook out in the second half, with Luke ascending to that role. I mean, that's the type of thing that can, probably be awkward maybe for some teams, or in different situations with different personalities, but it really seemed like it wasn't an issue for you guys. For you personally, being one of the veterans down there in that bullpen, just, how did you kind of view your role during that time? Just how did you try to like support those guys through that time?
I know it's a difficult time, especially, for guys to get demoted, and because I've seen it, with guys that are setup guys and then have bad kind of string of outings and then get demoted kind of into like a middle relief role or a long man role, stuff like that. But overall, I mean, Clay handled it perfectly. I mean, we're always there trying to help him, and it's we're such a tight knit group in the bullpen that I think that really helps all of us kind of like feed off of each other, and we always like talk with each other. I feel like we're around each other a lot, obviously, so that helps big time, especially how close we are. So I think him having, me, Weave, Tim, all these guys down here to lean on was big time. And we kept him, he kept his head right. And I mean, you see him now. He's back to the Clay we know.
Go to Ron Blum up next, Tommy.
Hey, Tommy, thanks. When you've been away a bunch of times doing rehab, and when you come back to the group, what do you think your exuberant personality brings to the group as a whole?
I'm sure they don't miss it much when I'm gone. But there are times I do, I've been a little bit more mellow, I would say, this year in Reese Pask. I think I'm more tired at home because of my kids. But yeah, I think the personality definitely helps in phases, I should say. Nothing can't overdo it. But I would say yeah, I'm sure it kind of reminisces with the guys, and they enjoy it. So we have a lot of characters on here, so I think that's a good thing. You kind of got to
How
let
much
guys be themselves, so it's fun that way.
how much do you think you help keep it light in the tense moments?
Uh, I hope good. I mean, nobody's ever really come out and said, but down in the bullpen, I know we all try to keep it light, and it's even when, into the later stages of the game, you don't want to get too stressed out. And because obviously that I always feel like if we're light and, still doing the same thing, even these playoff games, I've kept it, try to keep it the same way we are during the season, nothing out of the ordinary. So, and so far, so good.